Malic acid is a real player in cellular energy metabolism. It is an intermediate in the Krebs cycle, the mitochondrial ATP generating pathway that underpins sustained aerobic energy production. Malic acid supplementation has been studied for its potential to reduce fatigue and support endurance performance, with some evidence of benefit, though the effect sizes are modest and findings mixed. That mechanistic legitimacy is why creatine malate exists. Tri-creatine malate, the most common formulation, bonds three creatine molecules to one malic acid molecule. The pitch is that combining a compound that supports the phosphocreatine buffer system with a compound that supports the Krebs cycle should produce additive or even synergistic benefits across both the high-intensity and aerobic energy pathway. The aerobic energy pathway. The theoretical logic is reasonable. Explosive high-intensity effort draws on the phosphocreatine system. Sustained effort, particularly at moderate to high intensities, draws on mitochondrial ATP production through the Krebs cycle. Athletes competing in sports that require both qualities, such as team sports and combat sports, could theoretically benefit from supporting both energy systems simultaneously. The practical problem is evidence. The head-to-head research comparing tri-creatine malate to creatine monohydrate in human performance studies is limited. Most of the studies that have examined creatine malate have been small, have not used muscle biopsy to measure phosphocreatine loading directly, and have not been independently replicated. The creatine malate studies that do exist show performance outcomes broadly similar to what monohydrate research would predict: improved strength output, reduced fatigue at high intensities, but without demonstrating that the malate component adds measurably beyond what the creatine component alone would achieve. Isolating the malic acid contribution requires a controlled comparison with monohydrate at equivalent creatine doses, and that comparison is underrepresented in the literature. Molecular weight creates the same dosing issue as other compound forms. Tri-creatine malate contains approximately 75% creatine by molecular weight. A product dosed in grams per serving must account for this, or the consumer is receiving less creatine than they think. Products marketed alongside claims of enhanced bioavailability or better absorption without clarifying the actual creatine content per serving are obscuring the dosing picture. The malic acid content in a standard dose of tri-creatine malate is small, roughly 1 gram or less. Standalone malic acid research has typically used 2 to 3 grams per day for performance effects. The co-delivery through creatine malate may not provide the full malic acid dose needed to see independent fatigue reduction benefits, even if that benefit exists. For strength and power athletes who primarily want the phosphocreatine buffer, creatine malate offers nothing. Monohydrate does not already provide at higher cost and with more uncertainty. For endurance and mixed modality athletes curious about the malic acid angle, the practical route is supplementing monohydrate alongside separate malic acid, allowing both ingredients to be dosed correctly and independently. The malate combination is a thoughtful product concept that has not yet been validated well enough to displace monohydrate as the rational default. Whether future research demonstrates an additive effect from the malic acid component remains genuinely open, but the current evidence base does not support the premium. The performance outcomes documented in creatine malate studies, where they exist, are consistent with creatine's established effects: improved high-intensity exercise capacity, better strength output, reduced fatigue. What has not been demonstrated is that those outcomes are larger, faster to develop, or more durable than the equivalent outcomes from monohydrate at the same creatine dose. Absence of that comparison is the critical gap in the creatine malate evidence base. Creatine malate products have also been inconsistently formulated. The ratio of creatine to malic acid varies. Tri-creatine malate uses a 3:1 creatine to malate ratio. Di-creatine malate uses a 2:1 ratio, and some products blend forms without specifying the exact ratio. This inconsistency makes comparing studies difficult and makes product selection confusing for consumers trying to replicate research protocols. Tri-creatine malate has a plausible theoretical basis that has not been rigorously tested against monohydrate. Researchers may eventually show that the malate component adds meaningfully to outcomes. Until that evidence exists, paying a premium for it is a speculative bet rather than an evidence-based decision.